And then you guys would prefer here, or do you want us?
Wherever you feel comfortable doing this.
Whatever serves you. Perfect. You can even move the podium over if it helps.
So
No
the
need
same.
for them. Yeah.
Are you ready? You.
Ready? Okay, here we go.
Good morning, C-Suite of Camaro Carrera. We are so excited that you have invited us back today to talk further about our plan, and we are excited that you are interested in our plan of building a greener future through sustainable infrastructure in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Once again, my name is Catherine Beege, and I'm the industry specialist.
And hello again, my name is Cameron Lubin, and I'm the market analyst.
I'm Shreya Venkat, I'm the financial analyst.
And together, we are Árvore Consulting. Here at Árvore, we place a special emphasis on your company's core values of integrity, of sustainable innovation, and of ethical leadership. And through our project proposal yesterday, we talked about forming a public-private partnership with your company and the Brazilian government in order to develop sustainable housing and to improve upon the existing infrastructure currently in Brazil. We believe that this targets UN Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, but also as a byproduct of that, also benefits other sustainable development goals, including good health and well-being, reduced inequalities, and decent work and economic growth. And so here today, once again, we are so excited that you have invited us back, and we want to specifically address the ethical considerations of this plan today through the economic, social, and legal considerations. We believe that we would like to inform you entirely for this plan and really solidify the fact that this public-private partnership is the best approach for your company and for all stakeholders as a whole. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague to talk about economic considerations.
Thank you, Catherine. There were many ethical frameworks that we wanted to look at. However, we landed on Brazilian justice. Brazilian justice is all about goods and services that are provided fairly for all. This applies directly within the low-income housing that we are doing for you. With this public-private partnership, these individuals are coming from the city and then going in. These individuals are coming from the outskirts and moving into the city, and as they go into the city, it's important to stress the needs that there's landlords on the outskirts who are struggling to make their ends meet, specifically touching on individuals of the lower class. It's important to apply Brazilian justice to the fact that research has dug into this, and it's found that individuals with low-income housing who have the opportunity are able to not only increase educationally, they're able to gain health benefits, and on top of which, increase employment and their salaries. With this as not as a threat, with individuals not being able to have housing and in the situation of being scared and displaced, our opportunity for you allows them, these tenants, to have that sustainability in their education. In addition, I will also note that with this framework, there's not only individuals from scarce locations, but there's research that has been done for the benefit of the landlords, not only academically, but also with their income. I pass it on to my colleague.
Thank you so much. So now talking about the social considerations of this plan. Given that there is a massive demand for affordable housing in Brazil currently, with a population of 19 and 20% of them being in poverty, but also the slower rollout of this plan, given the need for time for construction, we see that there will be a shortage of these rental units in the short run. And so in order to combat this, we want to take a look at the Brazilian social climate today, and also take a look at the fairness principle as our guiding philosophical rule to implement this rollout. And so first, taking a look at the social climate of Brazil. Brazil has a very collectivistic culture, and instead of the traditional nucleus style family, instead they have multi-generational families living under the same roof, primarily for their cultural reasons, but also secondarily to save costs on rent. In addition to this, taking a look at the fairness principle, we see that resources should be rolled out based off of necessity and also contribution. And taking a look at Singapore's very successful affordable housing rollout in the past decade, we use them as a proxy to take a look at the considerations they looked at when taking a look at applicants for affordable housing. And this included citizenship, ownership of private property already, family style, and also they had a maximum income level. And so taking a look at the fairness principle, in addition to taking a look at other successful rollouts in the past, we combine these in tandem and provide a framework for how Brazil can most ethically roll out and choose who decides to live in these affordable properties first. And we believe that also with this public-private partnership, we can also reduce the level of corruption present in this decision. And so with that social consideration, I now pass it on to my colleague to talk a little bit more about the legal considerations of this plan.
So ownership of intellectual property is something that Camargo Correa needs to consider before forming a public-private partnership with the Brazilian government. In your contract, it's important that you negotiate so that you will be the ones retaining ownership of your intellectual property through plans, blueprints, and the buildings that you have created using your intellectual property. Based on Lockean principles, the only thing you own is yourself, and by extension, you own your labor, and taking it a step further, you also own the products of your labor. So, based off that, it would make sense that Camargo Correa would be the ones who ethically would be owning the buildings that they've created. But with contracts, however, that ownership can change. So that's why it's very important that it is negotiated in the contract that Camargo Correa retains ownership of the buildings that you have created using your intellectual property. This will allow you to have a fruitful partnership with the Brazilian government, which will allow you to not only help the citizens of Sao Paulo, but also potentially help citizens in other cities in Brazil and around the world. This will allow you to maximize the greatest good for the most amount of people, which aligns with your company's personal philosophy of utilitarianism and using utilitarian principles and how they impact society. Utilitarianism is one of the most commonly used ethical theories in both the political and the business world. Here at Árvore Consulting, we broadly define utilitarianism as doing the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. Camargo Correa, by negotiating your contract with the Brazilian government to ensure that you will be the ones retaining your intellectual property through retaining ownership of your buildings, will be able to increase the quality of life for the citizens of Sao Paulo and continue to create the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. Now I'll pass it on to my colleague to discuss stakeholder theory and why it's important to take that into consideration when discussing ethical issues.
It is our obligation to inform you of the stakeholder theory. This is not just you as C-suite executives or your shareholders, but it's also about the commuters. It's about the supplier, and it's all about the increase of activity that will be going on because of the project that we proposed. In addition to all of these things, stakeholder theory also promotes CSR, or social corporate responsibility. This is amazing, as we emphasize that in everything that you do construction-wise, to do the most you can, to make those strategic recommendations to all of your employees to mitigate environmental detriments. On top of which, all of these things align where individuals from your company, other companies, will know that you are setting the standards, that you are not only driven with your core values, just that they align to integrity, the core value of social sustainability, and lastly, innovation. Your core values set the expectation for all of your other competitors, and those stakeholders will understand that the importance that you set into doing this plan, aligning with ours, will further benefit Brazil. I pass it on to my final colleague.
So after evaluating the ethical, economic, social, and legal considerations for our Building a Greener Future proposal for Camargo Correa, we have provided solutions to the concerns raised, and we have supported our solutions with ethical theories. I can't emphasize enough the importance of sustainability and sustainable infrastructure, as well as the impact that affordable housing has on people's lives. Increasing the quality of life of the citizens of Sao Paulo is a goal that Camargo Correa is in a unique position to achieve through forming a public-private partnership with the Brazilian government to create affordable housing. This project not only will benefit the citizens in that they will now be able to move from the outskirts of town into the city with affordable housing, but it will also alleviate the stress on current Brazilian infrastructure, which will reduce maintenance and it will allow for future improvements to be more impactful for the city. Undertaking this project is the first step in making Sao Paulo a sustainable city. Help us build a greener future. Thank you.
Okay, you had 15 seconds left.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for timekeeping.
You're welcome.
Very good. You know, am I supposed to be giving you feedback or not yet? Or what?
You can give us feedback. That would be much appreciated.
Well, this is, I mean, maybe you don't need feedback because you're at the end of this. This
Yeah,
is
but it's
it,
always
right?
nice to hear, you know. like,
Yeah,
just to
no,
know
I thought you did a good job because out of the 4, I judged 2 of them yesterday. So I knew the least about you guys and the least about the 4th one.
Mhm.
So, and I mean, I read the executive summary, so it was, you did a good job of summarizing especially the ethical. That's real important in the 10-minute one, so good job.
Thank you.
So they did a presentation for us
Yes,
yesterday,
I remember.
and you want to share why you picked this subject?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So-
It's cute.
It ultimately came down to focusing on Brazil, and my girlfriend, I've been in a relationship with her for like a year and a half now. She's going to Brazil this summer, and so as a boyfriend, I wanted to learn about Brazil, and it kind of trickled down to Shreya and Catherine and Ryan, and kind of dove into why we even like chose that, and so yeah, that's how it started.
Fascinating country to research. There's a lot
Yeah.
of really cool stuff going on.
Yeah, just be careful in Sao Paulo. I mean, I had a trunk full of stuff, and I had an empty trunk
Oh,
when
no.
I got back to my car. So a lot of pickpocketing and you know, a lot of the same problem in Barcelona. It depends where you're going, but specifically I would say Sao Paulo. And it's pretty industrial. I mean, really the pretty part,
Yeah.
you know, is in Ipanema, in Rio.
So you've experienced like the traffic firsthand in Sao Paulo?
I started my career in international, and so I traveled South America. The only country in South America that I have not been to is Uruguay,
Oh, wow.
which is supposed to be beautiful, Montevideo.
I believe
And I say I spent a year, 1 night in Asuncion, Panama. You can skip, I mean, not Panama, Paraguay. You can skip that country, unless it's really gotten a whole lot better.
Wonderful.
But that'll be fun for you.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you
so
so
much for
much.
your time. We appreciate it.
Let's see. Next will be Blue Ridge. I guess, I don't know if I have to go.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, just tell Blue Ridge to come back in then.
I didn't know what an SDG was before this.
Yeah. Yes, neither did I. That's the thing that in the corporate world, you cannot use an acronym without defining it first. You have to like
The very
define it in the
first
first sentence before you use it again.
You might get people like me. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
So, I'm not judging.
Okay.
I just wanted to hear.
Okay.
But I am gonna be the timekeeper, so tell me what's gonna work for you. The last group wanted to notice it 2 minutes and 8 minutes, and then when it was over. So what's gonna help you guys?
Maybe like 5 and 8, and then like when it ends.
Yeah, the one that you said time, you can say time when it's up, so that way I know.
Okay.
That the
I
other
was doing
ones,
the gesture like this.
they're gonna, she's
She
gonna
didn't
do
see. I will say
5
time.
and 2, but at the end, say,
Yes.
go ahead and say
So I
time,
won't
so.
say anything, I'll just gesture to you,
Yeah.
but last time I forgot to say something and kept going. And it must have followed.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, I'm just disorganized.
Okay.
I fill this all out. Okay. I'm good to go now.
All ready? Okay, here we go.
Good morning, we are Blue Ridge Consulting Group, and today we're back to further elaborate and explain the sexual assault and pay gap crisis that occurs not only nationwide, but within Uber, especially before the release of the 2021-2022 safety report in order to better position the company, to better position them as a company who cares, as a company who takes action, and as a company who follows through on their word. First and foremost, we want to thank you for inviting us back today and giving us the time to further elaborate on Uber Female and the impact that we can make, how we can further promote gender equality by empowering women, sustainable economic growth, and decent work for all, along with reduced inequalities within the United States. But before we really begin, we want to take a moment to pause and highlight the severity of this crisis. Those 68 seconds might have felt long, but for the person who was just sexually assaulted or raped, that trauma and that memory will last a lifetime. In the United States, every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted or raped, and 9 out of 10 rape victims are female. Additionally, 63% of rape and sexual assault goes unreported, making it the most underreported crime in the United States, despite being one of the most violent. Additionally, sexual assault and rape don't just have significant social and mental impact. Over a victim's lifetime, rape will cost them over $120,000. This includes care for mental health support, such as therapy to deal with the trauma imposed by sexual assault or rape, healthcare, such as rape kits, and childcare for those whose rape results in a child. And this isn't just a small number. Nationwide, there's over 25 million reported accounts of rape. Multiply that by the 120, we're talking $3.1 trillion nationwide spent on rape. And as I mentioned, it's a crisis that disproportionately affects women. And as a company who values the safety of women, we believe Uber has the responsibility, especially as an industry leader, to further work to address and solve this crisis. And this isn't just happening nationwide, it's occurring at Uber every day. Since 2017, thousands of people have reported being victim of sexual assault or rape within Uber rides. And this number is 81% female. This crisis affects both drivers and riders. And again, as a company who has pledged and taken a stance to empower women's safety and to work towards empowering women, Uber Female allows for these goals to be achieved while giving women rights they deserve, rights I deserve, rights Ella deserves, and rights that both of you deserve. The right to not fear sexual violence, the right to get home safely, the right to work at the highest earning hours to help close the pay gap nationwide, the right to feel valued in the same way that men do in society, the right to feel respected as a person and individual, the right to consent, and the right to feel autonomous within our own bodies. And Ella's gonna go into how we do this.
So Uber Female is a female-only rider and driver option, as well as an improved gender-based rating system. As a rider, you simply upload your ID to verify your gender, and then you're able to be connected to a female driver. You will be asked when connected if there are other genders in the car. This is for the driver to help understand if there are other people and if they feel comfortable with that. On the driver's side, there's already existing background checks where they upload their ID. So using that information, they will then be connected to the Uber Female option. What happens is then, they will receive that pop-up if there are other genders in the car, and then they will be able to decline or accept it based off if they're comfortable with the other drivers. Our improved gender-based rating system allows for women to see how other women felt comfortable in those rides. When you get out of an Uber, you can rate them from 1 to 5 stars. In your user demographics, Uber would be able to take that information and then categorize those reviews into male and female. This again will allow women to understand how comfortable other women felt and be able to get home safely. Our data has shown
that the highest earning hours at Uber are on the weekends late at night. Unfortunately for women, this is when they don't want to drive because of the fear of sexual assault or rape. That means that women earn $130 less per week and $1.20 less per hour compared to their male counterparts. We think that this is a problem that needs to be solved because there should be no pay gap, considering pay is based off demand at Uber. And so if women felt comfortable driving at those hours, they would receive the same wage. But since they don't receive that wage. I will then go into our UN Sustainability Goals 5, 8, and 10 and how they pertain to our topic of Uber female. We believe that UN Sustainability Goal number 5, to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, is very important because currently nationwide, women still make 82 cents the dollar of a man. For gender equality, Uber has a great platform where people can make their own hours and create their own schedule. Again, like I mentioned, if this was fair playing field, everyone would earn the same wage. However, people don't feel comfortable, as I mentioned, which creates an inequality. What Uber Female does is create or promotes equality for women and allows them to earn at the highest earning hours, drive when demand is high, and earn those profits that men are receiving. For UN Sustainability Goal number 8, it is to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth, as well as full and productive employment and decent work for all. So for women, that does not mean decent work for all, because decent work for all would be not fearing the violence of sexual assault and rape. And so we believe that creating this buzz around Uber Female will generate revenue for Uber, as well as reduce this pay gap that exists for women. And finally, for UN Sustainability Goal number 10, that is to reduce inequalities. As Becca mentioned, we don't have the same rights as men do in this country, whether it's legally or just by a bias that exists in society. There's a right that I deserve to my autonomy of my own body, as well as to not fear ride shares. I believe that this is something that is a pressing matter that needs to be addressed, because you would never want me or Becca or your daughter or your mother to feel that way or fear violence in a ride share that should be just taking you home safely. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
You guys, your
Passionate.
presentation, well, and your presentation skills are excellent, and even better, you're even better today than yesterday, and
Thank you.
you were pretty good yesterday. So we don't really judge on it, but one of the things that impresses me is I think it's a very viable thing. I don't know why Uber isn't doing it. So I guess my question would be, I don't know, you can't really patent the idea, but I would go pitch it to Uber. And you know, if they do it, I mean, you guys should get some kind of fee.
Yeah.
So
There is
I
something
mean,
similar in India. that I've
Yeah,
heard
they
of.
have it in 23 countries.
Oh, they-
Currently, Australia,
That was in our
Canada,
other presentation.
Uber
yeah.
does in
and other
Uber-
countries, just not the
And
United States.
variations, we elaborated on it, making it a rider and driver option, whereas like in Australia, it's the driver has the ability to only pick up female
But
riders.
not the riders.
So we wanted to expand on that and then add the
Got
rating system to help women as well.
Well, excellent job. So
If you happen to know anyone at Uber, let us know. And we'll
I
pitch
said I
it.
applied for an internship and I'm
Yeah.
like, I did a whole project.
Graduating soon, looking for full-time
Yeah.
jobs.
yeah, I don't know if anybody, but I wonder if I'll have to ask around and see.
Thanks.
I mean, they have all your contact information, right?
Like
The-
LMU, the business.
Yeah,
competition.
LM,
Yeah.
because you applied to this, okay.
Yep.
So I can always contact Jeff if I can come up with somebody, because,
Find an Uber connection.
yeah,
We were like, isn't it in what is it, San Francisco?
Yeah, San
Is their
Francisco is their
headquarters? So we're
headquarters.
like, do you wanna come down?
Should have just shot them a LinkedIn message.
Yeah, actually, they're locked. I already tried to email them on LinkedIn. I messaged them.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you guys taking the time.
Yeah.
sure. It was interesting, the statistics, not very happy about it. I mean, 68 seconds, every 68 seconds, there's a rape. And the 82%, was that at Uber or
81%.
nationwide?
Yeah, so 81% is at Uber, the victims that were female, and then nationwide, 9 out of 10 rape victims are female.
Right, but I was looking at the statistics where you were, the salary was 82.
Oh, 82 cents on the dollar
Yeah,
is
it's a
nationwide.
statistic,
Is
yes.
nationwide, not
Yes.
just at Uber.
And then the 130 a week and the 120 an hour difference is Uber's
Yes.
measurements.
Yeah, because they're not doing the surge hours.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I don't know that any other team can beat you, but I got two more to go.
Pretty compelling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We
Great
appreciate
job.
it.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. You both will do well in sales.
I would like to, but I don't know if
Just make sure it's something that has a good commission for your efforts.
that's the problem, it's the commission.
Yeah, I can help
Thank
you with that. I'll keep convincing you to go that way.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
I always supported sales. I wear my heart on my sleeve, I'm a terrible salesperson.
Yeah, you know what I found? I found that,
Hello.
hi,
Come on in.
Kern Water,
Okay, so this is,
Top Hat Consulting,
yes, ma'am, okay.
Kern Water Bank. I believe in telling the truth. I was never a person that, some people think sales, just tell them what they want to hear and you can always change the deal later. I was never a bait and switch person,
So,
Being
being the person that was the recipient of that contract, that's when I would get in so much trouble with them. It's like, you said what?
all right, would you like,
Timers.
timers? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. So,
Okay, you want just the 2 minute or a 5 and a 2?
2 minutes is perfect, yeah.
2 minute at the
yes,
end,
2-minute
okay.
warning, like, so in 8 minutes, I'll go like this.
Oh, sure, that works.
Okay. And you wanted a 2 minute too?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Not confusing.
And then at 10, I say something, because otherwise.
Yeah, then I don't.
She can't read my phone.
Yeah, she'll say time's up.
Would it be
Otherwise-
possible to have a 2 and then maybe like a 1 minute as well? Would that work or?
So at 2, I'll tell you, you mean 2 minutes left or 1 minute left?
A 2 minute and then a 1 minute?
Left.
Yes,
Okay, we can
Thank
do
you.
it. All right.
That's perfect.
Okay, got this?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Kern Water Bank Authority. My name is Audrey Burley and these are my colleagues, Jalen Walton and Emma Simonis. We are here today to advise this board of directors on how you can create equitable action to create clean access to water for your stakeholders. As a board and organization that oversees a water bank capable of holding 488 billion gallons of water, there's simply no denying the critical role you play in California's water crisis. Now, one thing that we would like to note is that the water crisis is a worldwide one that extends far beyond the scope of the Kern Water Bank Authority. However, we understand that this cannot be addressed by one singular organization. Nevertheless, we know that the world water crisis will be solved one community at a time, starting with yours. And that's what we'd like to help you do here today. So, one thing that we would like to take a second to note is that yesterday we were able to talk to you a little bit about fair water management in California, and specifically our RACE initiative. And as a reminder, RACE stands for reevaluate, adopt, collaborate, and empathize. Now, RACE, as Jalen will now tell you a little bit about, is how we will be providing solutions for you today.
So the RACE initiative is all about reevaluating your priorities, adopting new management practices, collaborating with your stakeholders and your public to achieve more workable priorities, and empathizing with your communities. And we will demonstrate how this initiative works through specific frameworks after Audrey gives a little bit of information educating you on why this is such an important issue, especially in regards to the agricultural industry.
Thank you, Jalen. So one thing that's so important to note is that California is facing a water crisis. Lots of people don't know exactly how extreme it is, so education is so important, especially when talking about how this manifests itself in the agricultural industry, which the Kern Water Bank Authority has specific interests in. So California currently, in times of drought, 61% of available water goes to agricultural uses, Compare this to a wet year where 29% of water goes to agriculture. Now, why is there this disparity, you might be asking? Well, actually, it's because California is growing large amounts of non-native fruit and nut trees. And these require large amounts of water inputs and can't survive during times of drought in the natural California arid environment. So when we examine this through one particular tree though, the effects of this become evident. So for example, let's look at an almond tree. It takes 1 gallon of water to grow one singular almond. And almonds are California's chief agricultural export. 70% of almonds produced in California are shipped abroad to countries in Asia and Europe. But what's so interesting is that while California is growing these almonds, they're growing them for countries that already understand it's not in their long-term interest to do so themselves. But it's the same way for California. And yet the state seems to not have caught on to that memo. Because for California to produce 2.8 billion pounds of almonds, as it did in 2021, which keep in mind this is a low number compared to some other years, it took 1,133,440,000,000 gallons of water. And that is 3.5 times the maximum amount of water that the Kern Water Bank can hold, which is the resource that you protect. Thus, it is so important to be assessing how you are distributing water in your communities. Because when we're looking at how water distribution is affecting those around us, we see that when lots of water is going to agriculture, it is affecting surrounding communities by diminishing the amount of water that they have access to. Thus, here today, we would like to take some time to assess how you can make this more equitable and sustainable through actions that we propose here today. And another thing that we'd like to note is that you and the Kern Water Bank Authority have, as a whole, have the opportunity to make these changes. And we know that you want to, because after all, you've called us in here today, and you have already proposed and you've already, delivered us in here because you hope to create change. And we are so proud to be here today, to be supporting you and helping to become a steward of this resource in a way that benefits all communities. So now we'd like to use our RACE initiative to help provide a solution for how you can be equitably and sustainably distributing this resource.
Thank you, Audrey, for educating us on some of the important details to know when you're considering this issue. It's important for us to understand how the decisions we make affect the communities as a whole. So you were gifted this organization by government agencies such as the State Water Project or California Valley Project to ensure that the Kern Water Bank is operated to create the greatest amount of good for the public. After all, the state of California states that water is a public good. Yet this organization has participated in closed-door meetings that completely rewrote California law, the Monterey Amendments. These amendments have allowed for the prioritization of specific corporate interests in water distribution. The driving factor behind this unethical management is a conflict of interest. Though you declare yourselves to be a public agency, there is debate as to whether you are truly serving public interests. The Kern Water Bank Authority is comprised of water districts, and within these water districts are agricultural and development organizations. One specific example is the Westside Mutual Water Company, who has a 57% total representation on this board. Westside Mutual Water is owned by Marymount Farming, which is a direct subsidiary of the Wonderful Company, who is known for producing products such as pistachios, almonds, pomegranates, and oranges. The question has to be asked, how can you be sure that water is being distributed equitably when just one of your many private interests controls so much stake in this board? As an organization, you have a duty to take care of your member agencies and interests, but not at the expense of California's citizens. Beginning with R, we recommend that you reevaluate the priorities that govern water distribution. Corporate interests cannot be prioritized above public need. We must ensure that water is managed peacefully, equitably, and sustainably, which brings us to A. Adopt new management practices that reflect these responsible interests. Previous management of the Kern Water Bank has demonstrated that people with power control the resources, while people without power are cut out of the conversation. We believe you can correct this imbalance by collaborating with public voices to ensure a greater level of accountability and transparency within your operations, which brings us to C. Collaborating with public voices can include bringing in third-party representatives or environmental experts to provide an additional layer of insight and input for your management practices. California's water resources must be managed with the highest level of public accountability and oversight to ensure that water is distributed where it is needed most, not where it is most profitable.
Thank you, Jalen. Water is a commodity, but it's not just a commodity. It's a human right. People must come first, which brings us to E, empathize. You should empathize with your community because they're the ones that are negatively affected by the decisions that you make. While Kern Water Bank agencies continue to prosper, the surrounding communities continue to suffer. For example, Maria Arabello and her community in Pixie, California are among the many marginalized communities within the valley who struggle to access water. Maria and her community have struggled for the past 20 years to establish a church in their community because water pipes do not reach the land. Residents have expressed that they are just people. They don't have the means to dig up new wells or to fight legislation. They're at the mercy of big corporations and state laws. They are at the mercy of big corporations and state laws. So the question must be asked, is it ethical that Maria and her community go without something as simple as a place to worship simply because they don't have the means to afford the equipment necessary to pump groundwater? Maria is amongst many, Maria is an example of many, if not countless, California citizens who don't have access to safe drinking water, water to shower, brush their teeth, or even wash dishes. These people are being deprived of their most basic human rights. And there's nothing ethical about that. There's a huge divide between the water haves and have-nots, but there doesn't have to be. At the end of the day, water unites us all. We all need it to survive. So we must all work together to use it wisely. Playing your role as a responsible organization means acknowledging consequences of past mismanagements. By reevaluating your past and priorities, you can adopt responsible management practices by collaborating with knowledgeable third parties to make sure that public interests are being considered. You should do this because you care. You should empathize with your community because you care. Through the solutions listed throughout our race initiative, you will set yourself apart as ethical water managers who understand the plight of the Californian people and the struggles that they face and your organization's responsibility to help them overcome. Thank you.
10 seconds left.
Very good. So you were much more fine-tuned today, easier to follow, so obviously you reviewed some of the comments and adjusted, so it was great. It was good, very good.
Compelling.
So, good. And I guess the next thing is, do they announce it at the awards?
Tonight, yes.
I'm not going to be able to make that, so it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for being here.
To work with you guys, and good luck to you. You did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Would you mind telling
Who's the next one?
Viridis?
Viridis?
Viridis, yes.
Viridis.
The Monsanto
We had them yesterday.
there.
These are the, you know them, or you know.
I haven't seen their presentation, but
I believe they're from
Navarra, right?
just because you.
Because I had judged a previous year.
Hello.
Hi. Everybody's been presenting from that side. Is that good for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. And do you want warnings, like when 5 minutes is left, 2 minutes is left?
I'm not the judge, I'm just the timekeeper.
I was gonna say by now you know more about the case than we do because you've seen our presentation.
But I'm the judge on this one,
She's the judge.
and I didn't listen to your presentation yesterday, so.
So do you want me to give you a warning, like when there's 5 minutes left, when there's 2 minutes left? or
Um,
it's up to you?
I want a 1 minute warning.
Yeah, that'll be just fine. Only a little
Just
bit.
1 minute? Okay, I'll just hold up my finger
Okay.
because I kind of interrupted the last.
Okay.
Well, and then she'll just say if you've gone over time, she'll just say time.
Okay.
So I know.
Okay.
Hold on.
Ready, ladies?
No, not yet.
Oh,
Okay, no. Hold on.
okay, okay.
Okay, let's start.
So, good morning, members of the board of directors. My name is Adriana, and today, together with my teammate Rebecca, we stand before you as representatives of the consulting company, Viridis Consulting, who has gotten hired in order to provide recommendations about the possible acquisition of Monsanto. We hope to provide you with a comprehensive overview of our analysis and recommendations, so let's get started. Monsanto launched its brand new product in 1976. Little did they know back in those days that a few years later, in 2016, the first trials alleging its cancerogenicity were going to start to arise. A few months later, in May 2016, the German pharmaceutical company Bayer makes an initial offer who gets rejected to Monsanto. And this is when we get hired, in April 2017. So, Rebecca, can you please explain me a little bit the consequences of this acquisition?
Okay, thank you, Adriana. Of course I can. So it's important to keep in mind that the problem that we face with this acquisition were the ongoing concerns about the carcinogenicity of glyphosate, which, as Adriana said, is the main active ingredient of the key product of Monsanto, which is the herbicide called Roundup. So these ongoing concerns were based on evidence that we're going to explain later on, but they're basically just a handful of studies and the Monsanto papers. But something that we also want to keep in mind at all times throughout this presentation is that this case goes beyond Bayer and it goes beyond Roundup and glyphosate. Here we want to analyze the responsibility that large companies have when making decisions, because sometimes they just hide behind their ignorance to make excuses for the social and environmental damage that some of their actions have in our communities. So now, Adriana, if you can please explain the role that the SDGs play and the ethical analysis.
Sure. So the SDGs we believe that are involved in our analysis are, first, number 12, to ensure a sustainable consumption and production. Second, number 15, to protect, ensure, and promote a sustainable use of a terrestrial ecosystem. And last but not least, number 3, who wants to ensure the well-being and health for all at all ages. More precisely, Target 3.9 states that by 2030, they want to substantially reduce the number of diseases and health caused by hazardous chemicals. So the ethical analysis of this case is actually very interesting because it goes to the heart of the excuse that large companies usually make when damaging our environment or society, which is ignorance. The question here is whether ignorance exempts or not from liability. One thing we know for sure is that actually Roundup and its main ingredient, glyphosate, there's a possibility that there's a real connection between this product and cancer. So the more valuable the good at stake, the more sure we have to be before acting. So what were the things that Bayer knows before, making the decision of acquiring Monsanto? First, we know that Roundup was launched in 1976, and a few years later, Monsanto hires an expert in genotoxicity who already states that there might be a possibility that there's a link between cancer and Roundup. Second, in 2015, the World Health Organization International Agency for Research on Cancer already classifies glyphosate in its Group 2A for probable cancerogenic products. First trials start to arise, and this is when Bayer makes its initial offer. But moreover, a few months later, in 2017, the Monsanto papers appear. So what are the Monsanto papers? There are a collection of documents that appear thanks to the trials that are starting to arise, who show how Monsanto has been trying to influence scientific researches regarding Roundup. Knowing all this information that Bayer already has in its hands, What do you think that are the ethical consequences of all this, Veruca?
Okay, thank you, Adriana. So this part was very important because taking into account the information that was available is what's going to help us attribute responsibility to the company. First, it's important to understand that there are two types of ignorance. Ignorance can be invincible or it can be vincible. When it's invincible, there are no reasons why we should suspect that what we're doing is wrong. So in these cases, the moral responsibility is clearly zero. But when we're talking about vincible ignorance, there are two ways which we can pull forward, we can say. We can either dig deeper until we reach certainty, or we can stay a step behind and stay comfortably in a state of willful ignorance, which is where the problem lies. Because when there are suspicions or that the possible consequences of your actions may be wrong, it's your duty to clarify that. You will not be impugned. Okay, so we say that responsibility can be attributed to an agent when there is a case of vincible ignorance and when there is a possibility to be informed. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. And Bayern did have the means to further research and analyze all these growing concerns and rumors, and only then would they be able to make an informed and proper decision. So another thing that's important to take into account that Adriana already previously touched upon is that the greater the negative effect, the greater the responsibility the company has to dig deeper and reach certainty. And in this case, Roundup is being linked with a non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. So there are human lives on the line. This is no joke. So their responsibility to dig deeper is great. There are cases where we say that even if the consequences aren't certain, but they're foreseeable, but the agent, regardless, carries out the action and puts in all the means necessary for the consequence to occur, we say that they're responsible. So the effect is unintended, but it necessarily follows an action that you have willfully carried out. This somehow complex idea can be summarized in two conditions to attribute responsibility. The first one, as we've already said, the effect has to be foreseen as a possibility. Doesn't have to be certain, but a possibility, which with the non-lymphoma, all the studies and the Monsanto papers, they show us that there's a possibility that this may happen. And secondly, the action has to be avoidable. No one was forcing Bayer to buy Monsanto. It was something that they were choosing. So both conditions, are met in this case. We also want to state that Bayern had the means and they were responsible, so it's not good enough to just turn a blind eye and carry out this acquisition and hide behind willful ignorance. They have a big responsibility with our society. We're not just asking them to oversee that in their daily decisions they take into account ethical and sustainable ideas or principles, but it's their duty to promote this sustainable and ethical ways of acting. So overall, we can say that the acquisition was economically feasible and it was very attractive legally. There were no impediments because the ingredient as of today is still legal, even though it is foreseen that it will end up getting legalized with time. And the merge was also legal, but ethically, this acquisition just couldn't proceed because they were bypassing many principles. And it was their responsibility to, at all times, get well informed, and only when they knew for certain that Roundup and cancer didn't have a close link, only then would they be able to proceed with the acquisition. If they were to proceed with the acquisition, what we told Bayern back in 2017, we gave them a series of recommendations. So they could either stop the Roundup line until they reach certainty, or stop the Roundup line and launch a product that didn't have glyphosate. But another thing that they should do in addition to this is if they were going to market the product, they had to give the consumer all the directions on how to use it properly, and they had to inform them of all the risks that they were undertaking if they were going to use the product. Because obviously you're not going to use the product the same way if you know that there's a potential risk of you getting sick than if you don't know. So it's the consumer's right to know, even if they're just rumors, that they may end up, that it may be affecting their health, sorry. So we want to thank you today for listening to us, and yeah, we hope we clarified any doubts that you may have with this acquisition. Thank you.
Muy bien. You did a great job.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't listen to your full presentation, but this one was very good and very convincing.
Very convincing. And I again, we're just amazed that you can do this in a language that's not familiar.
Exactly. So, is Navarra near Salamanca?
No,
No?
it's in,
Pamplona.
yeah,
Oh,
the
it's
north
in
of
Pamplona,
Spain,
okay.
yeah, near the
The
Pyrenees.
famous running of the bulls.
Exactly, something, yeah.
So this is it. I think you guys.
We're done.
You're done. Now you can celebrate. What time is your celebration of words banquet?
At 6,
At 6?
I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
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 I have to go do my taxes, so I've been traveling for 6 weeks and I'm retired now, so I'm partying up. So I just got back from Europe last week, so I have to go do my taxes, so I have to scoot out. But it was great to see the school again. And,
Thank you.
another good job.
Thank you.
I
and thank
remember
you
the
for
Wells
all-
Fargo
Yeah.
one, so that was, you were reminding me 4 years ago. Wow, okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for
Okay.
your time.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you're most
Thank
welcome.
you.
You're most welcome.
I gotta fill in.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
So I guess I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah.
I think you're done.
Oh, wow.
And I'm here next, so I'm gonna get.
And, you know, this is, this for me is almost like a tie between that and Uber. I think Uber's more practical and has a greater impact than,
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
yeah, when I did their 90-minute, they had a few more glitches, but,
What's this one?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't wanna taint your opinions.
Yeah.
Kind of abandoned part. This is a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
For a sustainable conference, we're certainly killing some trees here.
But you know what? I didn't know we would get this, and I printed all my copies
Me too.
and read them. So, I mean,
But I'm glad I did it, because I didn't know I needed to be here yesterday too, so.
yeah.
So if you're retired, you're just traveling to,
Well, yeah, I
leisure?
did a bunch of traveling. I'm going to Norway in May, Turkey in June, and Egypt, Jordan, and Petra in October. But then I'm on the board of trustees of Loyola Marymount, and I had agreed to go with them to Spain. So from Jordan, I'm flying to Bilbao, Spain, and joining the board of trustees and regents that signed up to go. We're following the steps of St. Ignatius of Loyola.
oh wow,
That'll be neat.
oh wow.
So, anyway, it depends when trips come up, you know, so.
That's amazing. So that is your connection with Loyola, or?
I went here undergrad. And I did my junior year abroad in Madrid with NYU,
Okay.
as recommended by the Spanish professor, because Loyola Marymount had just started a program. It was a connection with Schiller and all the classes were in English. Well, I wanted to be in a situation where I was forced to speak Spanish and practice the language, because I learned at home, but then my mom remarried and we spoke English at home and I forgot most of it seems, so.
So I also went here, and the only programs they had available were with Schiller.
Schiller, yeah.
They all went to Germany, or.
Well, but see, Father Hanrahan was head of the Spanish department, and he recommended, he went to NYU, he had his PhD from there.
Oh,
He recommended that I go to NYU, and I said, how am I gonna do that? I have a California scholarship. So he went and talked to the offices, so they paid, scholarship paid Loyola Marymount, and then Loyola Marymount turned around and paid NYU. And their program was cheaper, so they skimmed off $400.
Wow. I think you were after me. I graduated in '77.
Yeah. No. I'm older. I graduated in '73.
Okay, so you went to Marymount then.
Well, my degree is the last one that says Marymount College at Loyola University. I was here because it became LMU 2 weeks after I graduated.
Yeah, so my first year here was, and it was I had always gone to public high school. It was my first experience with.
Yeah, come in.
Crazy.
Oh, you can't get in. Okay.
Sorry, lock yourself in.
That's okay. I'm just gonna finish my paperwork.
I never left. I was your timekeeper. I took your job.
So we're gonna sit in the back row?
We've been letting them do up there.
That's what I did. You can do whatever you want.
They seem to be a little more.
Okay, what time is it?
We're not until 11.
Oh, yeah, 10:30. Okay, so I'll finish my paperwork.
I really enjoyed you sharing all of your stories though, Ken.
I'm gonna give Uber number 1 and this page
I give you permission,
number 2.
not that you need it. That was very compelling, very compelling. Especially the 68 seconds.
Yeah, that was so effective. They didn't do that yesterday.
Oh, they didn't?
No, but it was.
You know, when I managed consulting groups, 2 times I had women. One was raped in a hotel on a consulting trip. Where was the other one? Oh, she was out running.
It would be easy to implement. I just don't think they're time. Yeah, I think it's a responsibility, but it's hard to build passion about that.
About Monsanto, about taking the blind eye. Maybe we're corporate now too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because maybe, somebody they know died of cancer from Roundup, so, no.
My heart still hurts about those, especially about the one who was raped in a hotel.
Yeah.
it still breaks my heart. And corporate law called and told me to stop being so nice to her.
A lot of paper.
I know, that's what I'm saying, you know, considering this is a state, we killed a lot of trees here. So.
Or there's somebody else's trees. So do we have to fill out the forms for the 10-minute presentation too, or can we just?
Well, I don't know, that's what I'm trying,
Yeah,
I
because
don't
for the
know.
90-second, we just rank them.
Yeah, I know.
That was great.
That's what he did last time. Barney, are you staying for the dinner?
I don't think so. When is it? It's like 6:30?
6 o'clock, yeah.
No, because this will be over 2.
Well, I'm done now, and I've gotta go do my taxes, so.
You actually have until October, but it's okay.
Well,
But you're traveling so much.
my accountant says that IRS had not, that California is with that, but IRS hasn't agreed with that. So I'm just gonna get mine done anyway, because I need to finish, I need to update my will, I wanna see where I am tax-wise and.
Yeah, so your next trip is to?
Norway in May. Turkey in June. I'm coming back because it's my 50th reunion. Otherwise, I would have just stayed in Europe. I mean, I went to Europe 3 times last year, and I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4 times this year.
Have you been to Turkey before?
No,
Oh, you must go to Ephesus.
I've been to Ephesus.
Okay.
I did
Well, that's
a
Turkey.
cruise of the Greek islands, and they stopped at Ephesus. But I think, I don't know if this is going again or not.
Wonderful food.
So she's definitely a world traveler too.
You know about Ephesus? When Rome fell, that's where they fled to. They sailed east and set up a successor to Rome on the Turkish coast.
So I don't know how I ended up, well, it was because I took religious studies at Cal State Long Beach. I ended up in a book, all these women who have immigrated from Turkey because of, I guess there's kind of you call it a program of educated people in Turkey. So they have all, there's a large support group here. And that's where I heard about Ephesus, is and I got it from a very different viewpoint, that they invaded us.